We find ourselves in a world that is more crowded, nervous, and anxious than at any moment in history. As technology advances, distances shrink, and regional interests collide more frequently than in the past. Asia's Cauldron, the South China Sea, and the End of a Stable Pacific by Robert D. Kaplan explores our globalized world and how Beijing's uneasy interaction with other Asian countries is shifting the balance of power in Asia. So if you seek to understand the complicated waters of the South China Sea, which is crowded with cargo vessels, oil tankers, warships, and provocative war games, then this book offers a superb summary of the geopolitics in East and Southeast Asia. Welcome to Caspian Report. My name is Shirvan and this is a review for the bookshelf. With dozens of books to his name, Kaplan is a well-known and influential geopolitical writer. His career skyrocketed following the Yugoslav wars when President Bill Clinton was seen with Kaplan's Balkan Ghosts tucked under his arm. Later on, insiders from the White House said that the book had convinced the president against intervention in Bosnia. In the following years, his later publications found a wide readership in the high levels of the US government. Therefore, it's safe to say that Kaplan is an influential source in the decision-making body of the government of the United States. It's his credentials that make Asia's Cauldron a must-read for anyone interested in history, culture, or geopolitics. Kaplan begins the book by disclosing his pragmatic approach to geopolitics. In Asia's Cauldron, he strips away the illusions of governmental promises and reveals a harsh reality of self-interest. As one reads through the chapters, it becomes obvious that nations are driven more by necessities and capabilities than desires and promises. This is critical to understand because unlike the Cold War, the present disputes in the South China Sea are absent of ideologies, values, or beliefs. Meaning if one were to introduce absent values, it would only backfire. Thus, only pragmatic decisions will succeed. Following this philosophic introduction, the author draws a straightforward, yet a convincing historical parallel to China's rise to power. In the 19th and 20th century, the United States defeated Spain and took over the Panama Canal. Following the events, the Americans managed to connect and dominate the trade of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Eventually, this gave Washington effective control over the Western Hemisphere. In a similar way, Kaplan argues, Beijing seeks to duplicate the American experience as it firmly believes that it's entitled to the South China Sea. Under the pretext of an Asian version of the Monroe Doctrine, China seeks to promote its own hegemony in the Eastern Hemisphere. In this context, the author takes the reader on a journey around the rim of the South China Sea. He visits Vietnam, Malaysia, the Philippines, etc. At every destination, Kaplan writes extensively about the local histories and cultures. Even if you don't agree with him, he raises many thoughtful issues. For instance, in Chapter 2, the author explains that China's behavior is the result of a history of occupation, colonization, and humiliation at the hands of external powers. Now the country is coming into its own and has laid its claims to the South China Sea, which provides a critical passage for China's business interests in East Africa, the Middle East, and the Indian subcontinent. Kaplan then continues to lay out the reasons for Beijing's geopolitical interests in the South China Sea. For one, more than half of the world's annual merchant fleet tonnage passes through the sea. This level of commerce has transformed the South China Sea into an intersection that connects the maritime trade of the Pacific and Indian Oceans. Furthermore, the sea is rich in natural resources such as minerals, fishing grounds, and not to mention oil and natural gas. Some Chinese observers have even proclaimed the sea as the second Persian Gulf. And given China's growing energy needs, it's going to want all that wealth. And with a population of 1.3 billion people, it's going to need it. This level of empathy helps to make sense of Beijing's behavior, and it's the reason why I'm recommending Asia's Cauldron. At the present, China is working overtime to replace the US Navy as the dominant power in the South China Sea, which would effectively place Beijing in control of the Eastern Hemisphere. Yet, near the end of the book, it becomes obvious that China's hegemony is unlikely to happen. While the United States is shielded by 2 oceans and 2 subjugated neighbors, China must deal with a complete different environment. Sophisticated nations such as Japan and South Korea wield considerable influence in the region, not to mention the juggernauts such as Russia and India, and even the unstable and nuclear-armed totalitarian state of North Korea. Even moderate nations such as the Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and others are no pushovers. In fact, even within China's borders, the Han Chinese are surrounded by ethnic minorities such as the Turkic Muslims, Uyghurs, Buddhist Tibetans, and Inner Mongolians. Kaplan argues that due to its volatile surroundings, China is unlikely to replace the United States as a world power. With only about 190 pages, Asia's Cauldron is a fairly light book considering the topic. It will take about a weekend to finish. Yet the content is rich. Every page offers a powerful thesis that will leave you contemplating for days to come. It is one of the finest works by one of the most influential geopolitical thinkers in the modern era. That being said, this is not a book for idealists who preach about liberty and democracy. For instance, there is a chapter called The Good Autocrat, which praises the former dictators in Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, and Vietnam. So this is not a book for the faint-hearted. It requires the reader to be open-minded and understand that necessities and capabilities come before desires and promises. One more piece of input: Asia's Cauldron should be read in correlation with Kaplan's earlier book on the Indian Ocean, Monsoon, which is equally impressive. You'll get a far better understanding of East and South Asia if you read both books. In essence, if you enjoy history, culture, or geopolitics, then Asia's Cauldron is certainly worth the effort. And if you want to buy the book, you can use our Amazon affiliate links in the description. It won't cost you extra, and we'll earn some money to support our content. Anyway, this was a Caspian Report review for The Bookshelf. Special thanks to our contributors on Patreon, and if you want to help our channel grow, check out our fundraising profile on patreon.com/CaspianReport. And if you don't have the means, then I hope you'll continue to watch and share this video. In any case, thank you for your time, and Sarol.